Hello again, hope everyone is doing really well. Today I've got a very exciting video for me and something I've been looking forward to making for the last month or so, and that's because I've got a few high-end pickups to show off. And this doesn't happen very often because I'm looking for very specific cards. It's probably about 10-20 cards I'm constantly looking for to add to my collection, and they're just really hard to find these days, and that's the reason I don't buy many high-end cards. It's not because I don't want to or I'm not looking for them, it's just because they don't pop up. And the fact that a few have popped up all within the last month or so is very exciting, and yeah, that's why I'm keen to make this video. And just to clarify, when I say high-end, I mean high-end for the kind of cards I collect, which are rookie cards of top superstar players. And although these cards may not have the same sticker amount as some of the modern super high-end cards money-wise, for me they hold a lot more significance, so I still call them high-end. So I'm just going to get into the first set or two pair of cards I bought, and if you might recognize these redemption cards. They're from 2000 Y2K, and the player that I bought was Pavlich. So these are the redemption cards. I've got number 24 and number 157, but obviously I've got the actual cards as well. So this is Pavlich's draft pick signature. It's a beautiful looking card and something that I've been looking for a while. I have seen it on eBay for about $100 to $150 a lot recently, and I was kind of hoping it would drop to more $70, $80 range, but it got to a point where I thought, well, if I'm ever going to get this card, then I should probably just jump in the pond. And I think Pavlich is a very important player in the 2000s era. I'd probably put him in a top 10 player in the 2000s era. He's on the cusp. He's not a top 5 player by any means, I don't think, but yeah, putting him any lower than 10, I think would be a bit rough because he has such a long and successful career, 6-time All-Australian, and yeah, just the way he played was pretty dominant. Him and Rewalt are the two most dominant centre-half forwards of the 2000s era. Chuck Johnson-Brown in there as well, but his kind of role, and he did play a bit on the wing and he had his time in the middle sometimes, but his kind of role at centre-half forward has gone out the game a bit recently, and it's pretty nostalgic watching tape of him and Rewalt dominant games like they used to and marking up the ground and kicking goals. So from the redemption cards, you can probably tell I bought 2 of them, and one thing that really pops out at me is the signature. The signature is super clean, especially he must have been about 18, 19 when he signed these cards, so pretty impressed with the signature he pulled out for that age, especially comparing that to some of the signatures that newer players do. So yeah, these are quite artistic really. This one especially is just super clean, pretty centered. Yeah, I think it's a good job all around. Number wise, this one is in the hundreds, so yeah, 157. I've got no special numbers, but the other one's a bit lower. I think it's in the 20s. Yeah, so the other one's number 24. Definitely looks a bit cleaner, but in general, the whole card looks super clean. So what else to say about this card? I think this is the kind of card that definitely won't jump, and I've said that about other cards, like the Judd as well, but this even more so because, like I say, he's not a top 5 player in my books. He's more of a on the cusp of the top 10. That doesn't mean he's a special player, though. He definitely holds a special place in the 2000s, but I don't think this card will jump to $200 overnight. So I should say what I paid for these cards. I paid $110 for one. I think it was $110 for this one, and then I paid $102 for the other one, I believe. So all up it was about $210, $212, which is about $105 each. And I think that's a really good price. But yeah, like I said, they're not going to jump to $200 overnight. I do think they're going to rise by 5 to 10% every year from here on in. It's not going to be a linear rise. It's not like next year it's going to be 110 and the year after that 120. It's probably going to be more like it's going to stay at 100 for a bit, and then it's going to jump up to 130 and then go back to 120 and then up to 150. It's kind of the way things work. But I do believe in this card long term. And one of the most important things, I made a video about this before, but just looking at the ceiling and floor. So the ceiling's not very high on this card. I definitely agree with that. It could, in the future, assuming that rookie cards become a bit more sought after, it definitely could get to that $500 mark, but that's a long time in the future. But what I'm more worried about is how far down can it go? Like, how far down can it go? It is not super rare because it's out of 800. So it's a bit easier to come across than other draft pick signatures. But even with that, the floor won't. I really don't see this card going any lower than $80. Now it could stay around 100 for a while, and I've kind of accepted that, and I think that's reasonable at the moment. But yeah, I don't really see it going down, and that's one of the reasons why I bought this card, because I just think it's a low risk card with moderate upside, not huge upside, but moderate upside. Another thing I want to talk about with this purchase was the fact that I bought two, and I think this is a pretty important point that I only realised when I missed out on a few cards in the past, and that's when you buy a card, especially on a public forum like eBay especially, when you buy out a card, sometimes it's best to clear out a price point. And what do I mean by that? Both these cards were up for $100, and the next lowest is about 150 on eBay, I think, at the moment. So by clearing out the price point, it clears out every card at $100, which kind of recalibrates the asking price for this card, unless people come back and fill in that price point with another $100 card, which is very possible. I'm not saying this won't happen, but it definitely can happen the other way, where no one fills in this card, and then after 6 months, people get used to the new price point of 150, and that's how things organically grow in price, because the current holders have a higher expectation of price than the previous holders. And going further than this, I think as cards go on, especially these older cards, every card that sells, the person buying that card is unlikely to want to sell that card back to another person for lower than what they bought for, unless the whole market crashes and everything goes down. The kind of people who are buying into these cards, such as myself, will be very unwilling to sell this card for any lower than they bought it. And now this is a bit different to people who buy modern cards, in my opinion, because lots of people who buy modern cards are very used to having to sell things for lower than they bought it. But for more long-term collectors and rookie card collectors, I think that people would just rather hold it. If this went down to $50, I'd just hold it. And long-term, I think it's going to come good. I wouldn't be fire selling this at any point, but if you buy newer cards, then the fire selling element kind of comes in a bit more. So that's the three things I wanted to talk about with this card. First of all, I just wanted to recognise Pavlich is a top 10 player of the last 20 years, legend of the game, certainly a Fremantle legend. The second thing was the floor theory, where I don't think this card has little to no risk, in my opinion, that even if it goes down to $80, it's not going to go any further down than that, in my eyes. And then the third thing was the buying out the price point, which isn't super relevant with this, but it's certainly something that I have missed out on in the past with buying cards, and I thought, well, I only need one, so I should just buy one at that time when I need it. But the point is, you never know when the next one's going to pop up, and once you clear that, once you buy one, say I only bought one for $100, and then someone else buys the other one for $100. If I ever want to double up in the future, it's very likely that the price point will be elevated to a point where I have to pay more. So if you believe in the cards and you want the cards, you may as well just clear out the price point when you have the chance. So that's the three things I want to say about the Pavlich cards. And then the next two cards, I actually bought the card show, and this is where I want to shout out the people who organise Adelaide Card Show. I actually don't know really who organised. I just saw it on Facebook popping up and being organised, and it was really, really well done. Really good turnout, I think. I don't know how many people usually rock up to these things. It was the first card show I've been to, but it was a really good turnout, and it seemed like a good mix of people there, and a good mix of sports and Pokemon and other card games. It was just a really fun time for me and a different experience. But I picked up two cards, which I thought, which I just couldn't leave behind, really. And these are the Patrick Dangerfield Platinum and the Patrick Dangerfield Gold draft pick signature. So I've already got both of these. I've got one Platinum and one Gold previously, and then I picked these two up for a bundle deal. It was $300 for the both of them. And because I already have a copy, I wasn't crazy about buying doubles, but I just couldn't say no. I couldn't leave it behind. I asked for the price. He said $300. I said I'll think about it, and I did another lap of the floor, and I just really couldn't leave them behind. It was just too good a deal, and it's one of those situations where I'm not sure when I'll find another one of these out in the wild, so I may as well just buy it now. This is the one. This is the card I'm most excited about, obviously. So now I've got 2% of the population of this card, and I'm trying to find a few more really, because I think Dangerfield's very underpriced. If you do the comparisons like I did in a previous video with modern players, this card, if you split up the total purchase price, it was 300 for both. So I'd probably split it up like 220 and 80. And at that price point, 220 for the platinum out of 100, I think that's just silly cheap for a player of Dangerfield's caliber. I know he's not very sought after or liked at the moment. I'm not really sure why. I think he's a legend of the game, and he's had 8 All-Australians, 3rd all-time Brownlow voting. If you look at his career individually, I know he hasn't had much team success, but individually he's certainly been probably the second best player of the last 10 years. And yeah, I think in the future people look at his stats and realise he's been quite a special player. The signatures are pretty good on these ones as well. This one's a bit tad thin on the platinum, and this one, if anything, is a tad fat. So, I mean, if you put them together, that'd be perfect. This one's a tad ugly as well, but really happy with these pickups. And like I was saying, I got a bit off track, but the comparison, 220 for this, and Jamara Ugle-Hagen's copper signature out of 175 is going for about 220 as well. So in my mind, that's just bonkers. Dangerfield, out of 100, his best rookie card is going for 220, and Jamara, his 3rd or 4th best rookie card, is out of 175. So it's less rare, and he's played like 5 games, and it's going for the same price as this. So I think that's just nuts. The market just has to correct itself in the future, and that doesn't mean this card's going to skyrocket. That could mean the Jamara goes down, and then this stays static, or even goes down. You just don't know. But in my mind, it means one or two things. This is either undervalued, or the Jamara is overvalued, and I think it's a bit of both. And I think this will go up, and the Jamara will go down a bit. But yeah, it's just a special card in my eyes, and I'll be keeping this for a long time as well, like every one of these higher end rookie cards. The only thing with Dangerfield, as I mentioned, he's not a very liked player at the moment, and although he's done all these things, people don't like to respect him and put him in the conversation of the best modern players. And that's a tad worrying, because although you can look at the stats and stats don't lie and all those kind of things, and I think the people who watch footy a lot will recognise him as a top player, the public perception plays a lot into these things as well. Just because someone does certain things doesn't mean they'll be remembered in a certain way. People can rewrite the history books in the way they see fit, and they could write him in as a diving player, as not a team player, selfish and all the rest. But yeah, I think public perception is very important, and that's another thing to think about, because sometimes you go, well, I'm going to start collecting Touk Miller because Touk Miller's playing amazingly, and he is. But the public perception of him being a top player in AFL also matters a lot, and being in a small market like Gold Coast and being a kind of unrecognised name in AFL still, even though with the season that he had, is a bit worrying for people who want to collect him financially in the future. And that's kind of all I wanted to go through in this video. Once again, I want to shout out the people who organised Adelaide Card Show. It was a great time, really enjoyed it. Hopefully there's a lot more of those kind of things coming in the future, and I think there will be, and I think it's the way forward, because there's no fees. It's really good to meet people. I feel like, I don't know exactly, but I feel like lots of things were selling, and people were buying and selling, trading, everything was happening, and it was just a really good positive vibe all around. So I hope I can go to another one soon. But tell me what you think of these pickups, whether you think they're good ones or bad ones or something in between, and I'll see you guys next video. Cheers.